right. Going to talk about marketing, us and a few thousand friends. So we have a lot of big topics to discuss, the state of marketing going into 2019. I mean, I feel like it's safe to say it's a very pivotal moment for the marketing industry going into 2019. There was a keynote at the Association of National Advertisers in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and the title of the keynote was Fire Your CMO. A bit hyperbolic, but I think it gets at the challenges that the industry is facing right now. So excited to have you all for this panel. I want to jump into this idea of taking a stand. Brands are being asked to take moral and ethical stands really seems like never before. And of course, inclusion and diversity are a big part of that. The example that everyone probably thinks of is Nike and Colin Kaepernick's campaign there. Certainly Nike had a degree of clout that some would say allowed them to get away with that, but it was a risk. And Michelle, maybe we can start with you being a board member of Nike. Can you take us inside the decision-making process there and weighing the risks to the potential rewards of a campaign like that? How does Nike think about that?
Well, I won't take you inside the boardroom. Nice try. But look, I think every brand, if you know who you stand for and you're passionate about your values, and Nike has always known it stands for the athletes with an asterisk. If you have a body, you're an athlete. And you're passionate about your values, then you can take a stand. And I think you're absolutely right that the environment we're in is calling for companies and brands to stand up for their values.
And what about you two, working with all these clients and all these companies? What are you hearing from them about taking a stand, about having increasingly moral, ethical focused campaigns? How do you weigh the risks and rewards of that?
Well, I think you cannot have a conversation with a brand today, at least we can't, where a brand doesn't say purpose, right? A brand is looking for, must have woven in to everything that brand does is purpose, and that purpose has to be authentic to the brand. So those are the kinds of discussions we have, and partly because if you look at the generation of consumers that exist now, millennials and Gen Z, the generations that's coming after, purpose is hugely important to those generations. They will boycott, get that, a brand that does not have a purpose that is relevant and relatable for them. So it's hugely important, both for the brand. It's hugely important for the consumer, for existentially for a brand.
Yeah, I think it's also hugely important for their employees. If you look at all the statistics, it says that people want to work for companies that share their values, that they're proud to be part of. And, if I look at some of the kind of anti-immigration stuff that happened over the Muslim ban, I mean, Google and Airbnb and Lyft, those companies were standing up for their employees as much as they were standing up for their customers. So I think in a world where nobody really trusts any of the big institutions, brands are going to need to play a larger role. But it has to be authentic to who they are. Otherwise, it looks a bit exploitive.
Right. So I want to talk next about the rise of direct-to-consumer and in-house agencies. But first, IBM has had some news. I want to get your thoughts on this, Michelle. With Red Hat, $32 billion acquisition, I think the third largest tech acquisition of all time. What does that do for IBM? And from a marketing perspective, how are you thinking about those synergies?
Well, we're super excited. I mean, the cloud journey has been a lot about what you can spin up in the public cloud, but the journey has changed. And really now it's about the 80% of the workloads that aren't yet on the cloud, which bodes for open. You can't have lock-ins. You can't be locked into a single cloud. It bodes well for hybrid, and it bodes well for multi-cloud. That is going to be the environment that major corporations around the world need to operate in. So the combination of Red Hat and IBM, two brands that have worked together for a long time that share a common purpose around open, is a very exciting one for all of us. And we have a lot to learn from Red Hat, and we're excited about starting that journey.
All right, so shifting gears to direct-to-consumer in-house agencies, there was a report from ANA that says 78% of marketers have some form of in-house agency, up from 58% just 5 years ago. And of course, you have the Airbnbs and the Harrys of the world that have just purely been direct-to-consumer. Maybe a question first for Gail and Rosemary. What's driving this? What is the future of the agency model when these trends are happening?
Well, I don't know. There's an American humorist, Mark Twain, who when reading his obit sort of published a piece that said, the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. And I think having read some of the reports out of ANA and people saying, oh, the last place I'd want to work now is an agency because everything's going in-house, I think that is greatly exaggerated. I think the agency business is alive and well, and it's alive and well because what our clients need is a truly integrated, frictionless answer to what is a problem or an issue. So I think marketing services is changing to marketing solutions, and those agencies that have an ability to bring the kinds of integrated skill sets together to address those solutions and address them in a data-driven, human-led way are the agencies that will continue to thrive on the go forward.
Yeah. I mean, I jumped out of an advertising agency 8-9 years ago now to start a different kind of company because we found that we weren't having the right conversations with our clients in that room. They were coming to us for advertising solutions. The place I worked for, it's kind of traditional advertising solutions. And I wasn't sure that they were really addressing the issues that our clients needed. And for me, a brand today needs to build that into its products and its services and its experience. And so the agencies who can deliver that for their clients, I think will be very successful. The agencies who are still looking at a kind of push-out broadcast model, I think, will continue to decline.
But I'm going to sound the alarm bell because I actually don't think, I think the modern marketer is a different beast than he or she was 10 years ago. She's a technologist, she is a data scientist, and she works in Agile. At IBM, we actually, as a discipline, have 6,000 marketers operating in Agile as a discipline. And it's a huge alarm bell for our agency partners because that means daily outcomes. It means stand-ups, retrospectives, data-driven, prioritization of work. The traditional model, which is send work out, get it back, and integrate it, doesn't work. Yeah. It does in some specialized places. But I think the alarm bell for the agencies and for the clients is how do you actually do work? That's the thing that I think has to change. Yeah. Whether the agency does it or we do it, I don't care so much about that. What I care is how work gets done. How am I assured of daily outcomes, data-driven, technology-driven? That's the role of the modern marketer. Some agencies, I think, are doing a good job of recognizing that they have to change the way they work, and others are not.
Yeah. I mean, quite often we're an extension of our clients' teams. So we work pretty well with in-house clients because we think they actually should be pushing the work and we should help to accelerate that where possible. We don't have to own it. And I think that, again, is part of the issue with the old model, this idea of ownership and we are doing it as opposed to together we have this task that we need to get done and we're going to do it the best way possible.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. And I think there was an old rubric of, there's your account person and they steward the business, right? And that is gone for sure. And agencies have to add value via data, via strategy, via creative, via unbelievable understanding of integrated media and how it all gets choreographed, and they have to work in direct partnership with the client in a very different way. Yeah. Agreed. But I think those that are figuring it out will thrive.
I mean, one of the things I think is missing, and I'd be really interested to hear your perspective on this, is that often I'll go into my clients and they've done a lot of work with BCG or Bain or McKinsey setting the kind of business strategy. And then I see that on the marketing side, they have a lot of kind of great initiatives underway. But there's not necessarily kind of any narrative that's kind of bringing the two of those together in a way that I think will drive coherence. And I think that has been lost a little bit with the loss of the AOR. And finding a way to bring those two things together, I think, is going to be important.
All right, so another topic that I think is top of mind for anyone who does marketing in this room are the social platforms. You've got these go-to platforms, obviously Google, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Pinterest. There's so many. A lot of them have taken a lot of heat in the last 18 months or so. And yet eMarketer says that Facebook and Google will control roughly 52% of the worldwide digital ad market in 2019. So how do you thrive and survive in this environment? And are these platforms still as attractive to you as marketers as they once were?
Well, two questions. Is it effective? Is it ethical? And we have to ask ourselves both those questions, right? I mean, we think a lot about things like brand safety and where our ads appear. We think a lot about, obviously, our clients' data and our own data and how it gets used. And we, like any brand, think about the bigger issues, too, as all companies are, thinking about the companies we work with. Do they reflect inclusion in the way we want to see it in the world? So I think the Facebooks and Googles of the world are incredibly effective channels. There's no doubt. And we leverage them extensively. It's where our clients want to be. Having said that, as a CMO with a large budget, it's incumbent on me to make sure we're asking those tough questions, we're having those tough conversations, and also that we're innovating with technology. I'm really passionate about what blockchain will do for media buying and the transparency and the efficiency it can provide for brands like IBM.
Gail, Rosemary?
I mean, I think the question is how effective do the users find those platforms moving forward? I think there's a definite trust from the advertiser, marketer perspective about what's going on from an integrity and a privacy perspective, but I think that's also happening with their users. I think they're asking questions about what's happening to their data, and I think that's going to impact how they think and feel about the platforms moving forward. So I think it's really critical that those platforms are creating a native environment where people have a good experience. I think Pinterest, by the way, are doing a pretty good job of that. If I think about the platform that they've built, it's really kind of like, I don't know, a marketplace for ideas and inspiration. It's a perfect place for a customer and a brand to come together. It's a natural place where so they're not interrupting that experience. I think they're building on that experience. So platforms that and advertisers that build on the experience, I think, will be successful.
I'm curious, from a marketer's perspective, do you think it's your job to vote with your dollars on behavior? I mean, you alluded to this, but so like say the Facebook scandal, your Facebook ad spend went up throughout that whole process. So, my thinking as a reporter who covers Facebook is if, all the CMOs in the world collectively decided tomorrow to stop spending on Facebook, I think that company would change pretty radically in a day to fix whatever problems that were. I mean, there's a lot of power in what you all do. Do you feel like the industry recognizes that and sees that as something that they should be using to hold these companies accountable?
Well, you just talked about the A&A and being on the board. That's definitely a topic that the CMOs are talking about. And our sort of accountability and responsibility, because it is our dollars, right? It's the budget that we have. So, look, I think incumbent on all of us is to have the right conversations. And I think those conversations are increasing in intensity, is what I would say. And we'll see where it all goes.
So we live in a post-trust era, right? And we know that trust has eroded in our civic leaders. So I do think it's incumbent upon us as an industry, with all the screens and platforms that we occupy, to step back and think, okay, where should we be? Where should we put our dollars, right? And I do think we do that on behalf of the brands for whom we work on a daily basis.
What about the internal culture for your teams? How do you keep up with the pace of technology and all these new platforms? There's something new every day.
Agile.
And you've got VR, AR, all this stuff.
So we at IBM, we're the first company at scale to go agile as a discipline in marketing. So our 6,000 marketers are all in agile squads. We went through 6 months of training with all of our marketers. We built workspace for our marketers that are agile. So we have 6 in the U.S., about a dozen abroad. And all of us, we have guilds of disciplines. So you can have a content person, a social person, a product marketer, an event marketer, a creative marketer, an analyst, digital media specialist. They sit in teams of 8 or 10, and they practice Agile as a discipline. It gives them enormous ability to prioritize work, as it does in software. It gives them enormous ability to actually think about how they optimize and get better every day through practices like the retrospective, daily stand-ups. It encouraging really rapid adoption and learning, because all of a sudden you're not sitting in your vertical silo anymore. You're sitting at a table with people of different disciplines achieving the same common purpose. So, I think changing the way we work is actually the number one question for most CEOs right now. Culture change. Technology, all of us can take advantage of, all of us can benefit from. Most of the world's incumbent CEOs are sitting on the biggest asset of all, which is the world's data. How you make change happen in your company, how you change rate and pace, how you operate and execute at the speed of ideas, that's really what's compelling a lot of C-suite leaders, I think, to think differently about culture. And perhaps the verticalization that we've all lived through for the past 30 years is not the organizational model of the future.
And you alluded to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I know these things are better when there's tension between the panelists. I feel terrible, but I totally agree with
you vehemently disagree
with everything Michelle said. I mean, we're an agency, right? And typically agencies are divided up into practices, right? There's a healthcare practice, and there's a consumer marketing practice and nutrition practice. What we did this past year is we created something called an X practice, and we took everybody who's involved with data and technology and innovation, and we moved them together. And it's similar to the Agile unit that you're talking about. And the idea being that it would feed those business propellant elements and that knowledge to everybody who's doing nutrition and who's doing government and who is doing healthcare. So that's our way, and to the point again that Michelle made, acceleration is hugely important and speed is hugely important, and getting that kind of thinking out to every team around the world on a consistent, regular, and accelerated basis is what we were solving for.
Yeah. I mean, agreed. When we set up the company, we have a cross-discipline team, so there's no baton passing in the way that it used to be in the old days. Cross-discipline with a set project, a set time, set KPIs, set deliverables, so everybody's on the same page, they're all working together. And then after that project, they often disband, and then we'll start another team. And that's, by the way, really exciting for them. Everybody's learning something new all the time. And, you know, as much as we can make that happen, I think the more successful we'll all be. And I think it's hard. The larger the organization is, the harder that is to kind of break down that vertical discipline and get horizontally in place.
Right.
But it sounds like we're all kind of in agreement that that's what needs to happen to thrive in this modern environment that we're in. Turning a little bit to regulation. So in California, there's this new data privacy law going into effect in January 2020. It changes how brands can set prices depending on if consumers opt in or opt out to share their data. And in Europe, there's GDPR, of course, which is quickly becoming, it seems like, the standard around the world. How does the constantly evolving landscape of regulation change what you do on a day-to-day, or does it?
I mean, the bar is what do consumers want to hear from us? And so, it's not so much what we want to tell them and how we want to tell them. The bar that our marketers have to rise to is, are we providing compelling, relevant, life-enhancing communication? If we're not, then all these regulations are going to make it harder for us to use the channels we've become addicted to. So I think that the good news is, for great marketers are getting creative. Great marketers are thinking harder about the emails they send, the way they do targeting, the way they do notifications and mobile and the like. And so I look at it as, it's a challenge that the best marketers will have to rise to, and that's a good thing for society.
We worked in regulated environments for years, right? Healthcare, the healthcare environment, the finance environment. There have always been regulatory issues. There will continue to be. Data, for sure, demands that there be regulation. And to the point that's been made here, we have to work around them. We have to deliver what the consumer wants and needs, and respect the regulatory voice, for sure.
How does AI play into what you do on a day-to-day? Do you think about it much? Is it just this thing that, I know you do, but with the agency side, is it a thing that you're using in-house to help you? What are the tools that it offers?
It's at the beginning, so I should just say that. There's a lot that we're going to learn and discover, but for me, this is, AI and VR and all of those things are going to change the way we market in the same way as the internet changed how we market in 1998. I think we moved then from this idea of marketing being about persuasion to marketing being about participation. And I think this is going to take us into marketing singularity. It's going to be like, we're going to be totally immersed. It's going to be a totally immersive experience. And so for me, I was talking to one of my clients who's in the car business, and with the internet came car configurators. That changed totally how they went to market. If you choose to configure a car online, you're 20 times more likely to buy that car than if you just go into a showroom. With AI, you can now have a test drive at home. That's going to happen pretty soon, and that's going to change, your whole relationship with how you buy something.
Mm. I think there's the pieces like that are sexy and exciting, but there's also what AI delivers for us. And when you think about the work we do in issues and understanding how people are feeling, it used to be that to truly understand what was going on, one would go out and do complicated searches of media, and it would take hours and hours and hundreds of humans. And now with AI, we can collect perspectives, feelings, conversations from across the world in multiple language via things like NLP and AI, et cetera. And that enables us not only to know what people are thinking now, but to be predictive in how we're shaping conversations and thinking about things on behalf of our clients. So I couldn't agree more. I mean, initially it was, OMG, AI is going to make ads and everything's going to change. And AI has made ads, and they've been okay, actually. But for us, it's how to deploy AI in ways that are meaningful and deliver on the solutions mandate, and I think it's extraordinary.
Yeah. There won't be a profession that doesn't change because of AI. And when you think about that, the biggest societal issue is going to be that everybody will have to live through constant retraining and relearning. As a society, we're going to have to be constant learners, continual learners. So that's a really interesting question for society, for companies, for government officials, for nonprofits. AI will profoundly affect marketing, I think, in 3 ways. And I think Rosemary and Gail have touched on it. One, is going to change what we know about our consumers. It's going to provide a lot more insight into personality, social sentiment, who they are, what their intention is, what they're trying to do, as opposed to just what their actions or their clicks were. Secondly, it's going to change how we interact with consumers. You see that today in chatbots. You see that today in these experiments we're doing with Watson Ads. You tell us what's in your refrigerator, a menu will be tailored for soup based on what's in your refrigerator. So interacting, ads that are interactive. And it's also going to change how we work, much like it will shape every profession. The amount of data each of our 6,000 marketers is sitting on every day is explosive. And there's no way one person can fully understand the corpus of information that's in front of them. And that's perfect for artificial intelligence. We seek to think about what's the next best action we can take as a marketer. So reshaping what we know about customers, reshaping how we interact with them, and changing the way we work. The 3 areas that I think in the next 3 to 5 years will have a profound effect on marketers.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Michelle, Gail, Rosemary, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.